them do more work. So
No worries.
uh the show is just like all your other shows. I've seen a bunch of your YouTube videos, your interviews and whatnot. Very conversational. We're gonna get into some of your background. We'll go into some of the things that you're doing now. We'll go into some of your books that actually look very appetizing from what the recipes I've seen on them. And I'm actually hungry because I didn't work out yet, and I didn't eat yet. So I had to actually turn those off.
No worries. Well, hopefully we'll have you starving by the end of the show.
That could happen. That could happen. So, any
All right.
questions for me before we get started?
Coming up to about a minute for showtime.
Oh, minute. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Wherever you want to go with it, I'll roll with it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll pretty much go everywhere. Before we know it, the hour's going to be up and it's going to be like time to say goodbye.
Okay.
Oh, let's see here. I'm just pulling up all your stuff, your website. So I have stuff over here, over there, everywhere.
And yet it looks like you're hanging out in the Keys.
Close. It was actually the Bahamas.
Oh, nice.
So you were close. That was Princess Key.
Uh,
Right there. I was on the way to actually swim with dolphins.
oh, nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Very therapeutic, very relaxing.
All right, about 30 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and send you the feed. Have a great show.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Welcome to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. Whether you feel that you don't have enough money to start investing or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy, Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Magnus Carter. Last week, we had a replay of the shred method for shredding debt. Those guys over there are still literally doing exactly what you're doing. I'm actually still following along with the program myself. Uh, so that actually is from last week. But this week is I've been wanting to do a show on this topic for a very long time, probably since before the holidays. I was looking to do this. And today's show is going to be all about food, all about our body health, and how that actually equates to us making more money, investing, and a longer, healthier life. With me, I have a special guest for that. Is I have Chef Dr. Mike. Welcome to the show, Chef.
Thanks, Magnus. Great to be here, mate. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I seen that, you know, before we get into a couple of things, I want to go into your background because it's a very colorful background because you normally see a doctor that's just normally a doctor and you're a cardiologist, correct? So you're
Right.
constantly, you're always constantly doing consultations in a doctor's office and, the fancy robes and whatnot. But what got you into becoming a chef? Because
Actually,
that's an odd combination.
actually, the chef part came first, believe it or
Oh,
not. So, as you know, I was growing up in the dark, dark ages before the internet. We moved around a lot as a kid, so I was sort of constantly that new kid on the block, not in the very successful boy band way, but in the very unpopular actual new kid on the block way. And my mom was a great home cook and really into at the time. Probably the only celebrity chef there, Julia Child, along with Graham Kerr from the Galloping Gourmet from New Zealand, I believe. And about the time I would get home from school, she had watched the shows and had the cookbooks out and was getting dinner ready. So I was jumped into the kitchen to help out. So in many ways, the kitchen, though I did not appreciate at the time, I was learning culinary medicine because it was a place of healing, not only just a place to sit down and eat at the dinner table. And as I went off to college to help pay for college, had to get a job. And so for me, it was very natural just to go into the food industry again. At a time when there were no celebrity chefs, plenty of jobs, nobody wanted to work in a smelly kitchen where you had to be there Friday and Saturday nights when all your friends were going out and you were the ones who were serving them there. So I actually started as a dishwasher.
okay.
I worked my way up. And till by the time I left college, I was essentially running the back of the house at a nice little local restaurant. What today we would consider really a farm to table and sort of a seafood, sea to table restaurant at the University of Virginia way back when.
Oh wow, you've brought up so many good points there that I would love to get into. One point is I am a firm fan of the small restaurants. Big shout out to those business owners out there because even though they took some time, they instead of putting the money into what it looks like, they put it into their food where it actually counts. I applaud them for that because I have been all over the US as sure as I seen that you have traveled as well. One of the main things I love to do was go to these small restaurants and try out the local cuisine, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's been so hard and it's so good to see so many of my friends and colleagues kind of bounce back from the difficulties of COVID. And that disproportionately affected these small business folks, these people taking the extra effort to source local foods, good foods, bring them to us in the most delicious way possible, preserving ethnic, cultural, and regional cuisines, as you mentioned, going to different areas of the country, being able to try different things. And so it's good to see them, starting to bounce back from that. By the end of the COVID, chain restaurants were actually at a higher growth rate and doing better than before COVID because of the supply chains and the fact that a lot of them were built for takeout, so on and so forth. They really ended up thriving. And benefiting from COVID, whereas the exact opposite happened to the type of restaurants you're talking about, which relied on people being there, in-person dining, being able to get to the local purveyors and producers, get your ingredients, etc. So it's good to see them starting to make a little bit of a comeback.
Oh, I completely agree. Now, yeah, as you know, the show is all about how to help people make money. And this is pretty much for the small business people or people looking to invest. You brought up a fact about the supply chain. Now, how does a small mom and pop shop differ from the chains on how they source their food?
Right. So a lot of the chains use what we call ultra processed foods, which, as I teach at the University of Montana, is one of the focal points of our culinary medicine course. Because although it's not really common knowledge now in the United States, and it is in many other countries around the world, in 2022, for example, France completed a 4-year study looking at how to reduce ultra processed food consumption in the French population as a whole because it's so overwhelming in terms of the recent data that's been put forth before us, that this is one of the major causes of chronic disabilities and diseases, things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease that I deal with as an interventional cardiologist, and so on and so on and so forth. And one of the great ways to save money is to stay healthy and not see me in the cardiac cath lab at 2 a.m. when you'll get a bill for $25,000. Does not go into my pocket, folks. That's the hospital charges, for a cardiac catheterization and or stents for like a little 2-day, a stay at the hospital. And then, what people also don't realize is that once you have a diagnosis of something like coronary disease, you're flagged for higher insurance rates, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that you'll continue to pay for, for the rest of your life, outside of obviously the personal health effects. So staying healthy is very important. And staying away from those ultra processed foods seems to be one of the real keys. And this idea, and I know your listeners are frustrated, Magnus, and I don't blame them because I was too. For 50, 75 years, there's been sort of this schizophrenic food health advice, right? Like, don't eat eggs. Oh, eggs are good for you. Well, maybe these people shouldn't eat eggs. Don't eat artichokes. Don't eat avocados because they're full of saturated fat. Absolutely don't eat any kind of nuts. They got lots of saturated fat. Wait, that's a good kind of saturated fat, so you should eat lots of them. Eat as much as you can. Have lots of guacamole. Dip your nuts in guacamole. And it turns out that, a lot of this is because we didn't appreciate a couple of key things, which is the gut bacteria and how important that is for our health, and how ultra-processed foods are not the same thing as natural foods or naturally processed foods. So I'm talking about, making a pizza from scratch. I make my own dough. I crush some fresh tomatoes. I put some real cheese on. Boom. That's a pizza that the Italians have actually shown in the study to be good for us, to contribute to health. Calling up the chain, and again, those supply chains with all that prepackaged, processed, low quality ingredient stuff, turns out that that's not so good for our health.
Oh, absolutely. You can have. You brought up a bunch of things there. You can actually taste. I'm definitely very um ex- uh, susceptible to taste of cheese. That's one thing because I love eating it. You can definitely tell the saltiness level of a cheese. That the higher the salt, the saltier it tastes, the lower the quality of the cheese it is.
Well, you bring up a very good point. One of the characteristics, and we go through them in our class because it's so important for the graduates of our program to be able to obviously know what that is, but then communicate and help educate others, is these really high levels of sugar, salt, and fat. And it is mostly salt and sugar that interact with our brain. So these, particularly sugar, acts in the same area of our brain as opioids. And we know how well as a country we're doing with that addiction right now, right?
Right.
And so that actually it functions in our brain the same way. It hits our dopaminergic reward center. So as a producer of food, of ultra processed food, again, you talking about the differences. When I can add lots of levels of sugar, I'm literally drugging you into having a positive experience when you eat my food. Salt reinforces the desire to have it again and again. Some psychologists have said that salt, because we're omnivores, is what we're descended from. We have to, like many other primates, we are built to seek out salt because we have to have it in the wild to survive.
Right.
And so many of them think that salt, our innate craving for salt, is actually the basis of all addictive human behavior because we literally had to seek that out. We sought it out to survive, etc. And what fat does is fat is a carrier. And so when I combine sugar and salt in varying combinations and then add fat, I can actually deliver more sugar or more salt to your brain before you start to think it's unpleasant. And the ratios vary. And so, like with a potato chip, you might want it to be saltier because you're expecting, desiring something a little saltier. A donut, you may want to be a little bit sweeter, so we up the sugar level. And those combinations of sugar, salt, or fat are what's known in the food production industry as a bliss point. And every different type of food has its own bliss point, and every manufacturing is seeking to out-manufacture the other guy
Okay.
and essentially construct a more addictive food-like substance.
Like adding sugar, like soda, as we're talking about. Soda, I've been off soda now for over a year and a half again. Before that was like 7 years. And I just had that craving for it and I seen it. And I just had it because I had the focus. I needed the caffeine to focus. So I knew that's what it would do.
Yeah, and you're right. And listen, I went through the same thing. So, I was an intern, busy resident, many, many years ago, more than I can remember. But I'd have coffee all morning long, but in the afternoon I would switch over to soft drinks. And the same as you, I'd be having, half a case of soft drinks the afternoon and then to work into the night when I was on call and stuff. And soft drinks, as we found in our research and in our culinary medicine solution that we work with people through, called the Healing Table, that soft drinks are one of the big contributors to ultra processed food consumption, not only in America but across many other countries. And so it becomes this sort of focal addictive point, as you said, where people are just reaching for these soft drinks all day long and not really realizing 32 ounces, 20 ounces, 64 ounces here, there adds up to a lot of things you don't want to put into your body.
You're right. And let's go into the restaurant aspect of this because, you know, times are tough now and eating out's been went through the roof with everything. And one thing I want to question you on and what would be good for the listeners is now when it's always been Coke or Pepsi on the menus. So do these businesses actually tailor their menus around what kind of soft drink they're serving or wines they're serving?
Well,
Because
sure.
like you said with that.
Yeah, so some of the ultra processed food, the fast food places, whoever they can do the deals with, for I don't know if it's still true, but some of the outlets were actually owned by PepsiCo for a while.
Mhm.
I think it was Yum Brands, or maybe they
Right.
they bought it after, which was like Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, etc. So certainly, even the ones that aren't, they're doing, like McDonald's is its own thing.
Mhm.
And again, you want to talk about sort of the clout that these businesses have. If McDonald's was a country, it would have the 90th largest economy in the world, just McDonald's, without all the
Wow.
other burgers and fast food places. So they have a lot of clout to control the messaging, and the regulations and things that go about. But certainly, they're when they serve foods, they're not really crafting foods. They're not cooking foods
Mhm.
like the small business person that you said.
Right.
My friends who are chefs and the restaurateurs that work with them, right? They're bringing in this natural product, high quality product. They're cooking it. They're preparing it for you. The ultra processed foods that are served by these other fast food joints, etc., they're really just built to be assembled, right? You dunk them in
Right.
oil, you stick them in a microwave, and therefore everything is low cost, and including your labor costs, because you're not paying for a chef. You're
No.
paying, a high school kid to, get out there, listen to a timer, and put the fries in the deep boil, and then take them out when the buzzer goes off.
Okay. Yeah, it's I don't know if you've seen it, but it was the history of fast food or history of American foods, and they actually went through how McDonald's came to be, cornflakes, all these giants came out, and the mistakes they made along the way to actually get people to come to them, just like uh KFC they made a broiler, that a high pressure broiler and whatnot out of it. It's amazing that they've done this and they can get food out in less than 2 minutes.
And you just hit on one of their main selling points, which is the convenience factor.
Right.
So we live in a convenient society, and I think sometimes maybe we get so busy as individuals, right? We're 24/7, we're on the go, we're doing things, that we don't realize how sort of self-destructive to our own lives and our own health it is, and how susceptible we are, because we kind of sacrifice things on the altar of convenience. And so, a great example, we just talked about Pizza Hut, and the CEO, Mr. Creed, some years ago, gave this really fascinating talk. He said, easy beats better every time. And what he meant was, he sat down, and Pizza Hut was number two in selling pizza, and they want to be number one, right? So
Okay.
he said, well, how do we do that? We make a better tasting pizza, right? Oh, of course.
Right.
So that's what they did. And they did all the focus groups and tested it, and everyone liked their pizza the best. And so they unveiled their new, pizza formulation, blah, blah, blah. Sales didn't really change much. They're like, what's going on? So they studied, like you said, what did we do wrong? Well, consistently, everybody said, yeah, I like Pizza Hut pizza better, but I'm not waiting the extra 90 seconds on the phone to order a Pizza Hut pizza. And so what he did is he said, screw making a better pizza. I'm making it easier, i.e., facilitating the convenience factor and
Okay.
making it cheaper by piling on lots of that ultra processed little like sausage nuggets that look like, animal droppings that they put on your pizza.
Right.
And that's the way he went, and sales went through the roof. And he said, it's about convenience. It's people may mouth that they want quality, and maybe in their brains, we really do. We want to eat good things, but what we fall prey to is our own laziness, if you will, our own desire for
Right.
convenience, and we don't really take the extra steps. So we put more thought into buying a cell phone than we do into what we're going to put in our own bodies.
Wow, that is something to think about right there. And this is an excellent stopping point. We got to take a break quick, chef. Everybody, I have Chef Dr. Mike with me. We're going over food, how it actually will equate to us having a better, more financial higher base life. Wow, my mind melt right there. And we're gonna come back after this break, and we're gonna talk some more.
All clear. Be back in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, that's a lot to think about, especially Pizza Hut.
What's that?
Man, that's a lot to think of. That's a lot right there. Just how we're talking about the convenience factor and money. You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna pay more for convenience. That's odd.
Well, it comes down to, sort of like what people say, you pay for what you get.
Right.
And you talk about, well, they're offering these things really cheap. If you can get, half a dozen nuggets for 19 cents, or like 6 cents a nugget, what do you really think you're getting? Right? It's not necessarily a bargain.
No.
That's a go. Well, save that, because I'll give you the result. Where I'm going with this is that, if I'm making a chicken nugget at home, it's probably like 4 ingredients, like a piece of chicken, the breading ingredients, and I cook it up. A commercial McNugget has, I think, 34, 39 ingredients.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't wow. 34, 35. Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
So within that nugget, there's not a lot of room for chicken.
Coming back in about 30 seconds. Sending you the feed.
Okay. 10-4.
Awesome.
You're listening to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm Magnus Carter. This show is all about food. I am a giant foodie. I've been wanting to do a show like this for a very long time. And with me, I have Chef Dr. Mike. Thank you for coming back, Chef.
Oh, my pleasure. And I love being on your show and loving the things that you're talking about and being able to share with your audience. So thank you.
Absolutely. We just during our break, we were talking about a chicken nuggets and convenience. This is going to astound you that a chicken nugget that you make at home is definitely not the chicken nugget that you're getting when you go out. As we talked about, Chef, is there's four or five ingredients depending on what you want to do and how you make it in a home-based chicken nugget or chicken strip. But you're saying that there's 34 to 35 different ingredients in the ones we go out and buy.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but a chicken McNugget has about 35 to 39 different ingredients in it. So you can get a sense right away that there's not a whole lot of chicken in that nugget. And like you and I were talking, if you're paying 6 cents for that piece of nugget, you really do get what you pay for. And, people need to understand and revisit. And I'm sure that we got a lot of entrepreneurs out in your audience, Magnus, and I'm sure they understand the concept of value. Well, what is value, right? It's the quality of something and the quantity of something, and we put those together and we come up and we put a valuation on it. And it's not always about quantity, because if I were going to offer you, one, 80-inch super high def 8K or whatever they are these days, large screen, or 55 vintage 6-inch black and white TVs, you'd say, like, dude, right? Give me the one big screen. So you sacrifice quantity because you're getting a higher quality. Unfortunately, when it comes to food, we don't do that. And they know that, right? A Big Mac is never a delicious Mac. It's advertised as a Big Mac. Right. You don't get a yummy burger, you get a Whopper. So it's all about this idea that food is equal and quantity therefore equals value, when in fact over the last 75 years food has changed, as we were just talking about. 200 years ago, a chicken was a freaking chicken, right? It ran around the yard. It was a yard bird. But now a chicken is not a chicken. And so until we start applying some of these economic ideas that you talk about and bringing them into other aspects of our life, like our food and looking at what we're eating, we're going to be able to be misled by the advertisers, because that's what they focus on. I mean, people talk about, oh, this is quality, but nobody really takes a moment to look at the value of food in terms of quantity and quality variables.
Okay. Well, those are very good variables and a good segue into how does a family of 4 or 5 people survive this day and age with these unprecedented prices? I myself, when I go out now, so I do eat out occasionally, but it's normally Chick-fil-A or something, something really good. I know that's still chicken. and I pay for it, trust me. But for me to eat out, it's like $20-$25. That's for one person, one meal, a drink. It's normally water anyway. I'm like, it's a bottle of water. And how can the family start doing this? Is there better ways to do this?
Well, sure, absolutely. And it's one of the things we talk about in culinary medicine, and we kind of refer to it as practical culinary medicine.
Okay.
So let's just put all the science aside and the studies and things and get to what you said, which is like, how do I use this information so I can be healthier, eat more delicious food,
Right.
and be able to afford to do that? Because just like everyone else, man, and it's not only even just the price of stuff, right? It's like if you can find it. Because there's still these bare spots, at least, at our supermarkets around here, we can go in and just find these bare spots. So part of that is understanding that for a long time, because of convenience, we have lost, meaning we sort of as a society, really an ability to cook for ourselves, to know how to make things, to know how to make things last. And that is not by accident, I tell you, because if I'm selling convenience, the best thing I can have is a customer base that can't produce that item themselves. Okay. So making it affordable, making it convenient, driving you into the idea that, oh gosh, if you're in the kitchen cooking away, that's drudgery. You're like a homebound slave, just buy our ready-made cookies and get out there and do that. And that really was the message in the 50s, around the 50s and the 60s, right? Was get out of the kitchen, get leisure time. And we've run with that, and it's been promoted to us, such that, as I said just a second ago, one, we've lost our culinary skills. So learning some basic culinary skills, you don't have to make Michelin-starred food, but knowing how to do a couple of basic things in the kitchen empowers you to then control what you're going to buy and what you're going to eat and how it's flavored. The second is that one of the interesting things about these supply lines that have gone down is that for folks who have access to local resources, which used to sometimes be more expensive than buying the ultra-processed item at the supermarket, it becomes cheaper or certainly competitive. Why is that? Well, if I go to my farmer's market, which just opened up, I have a bunch of different vendors, and all their zucchini comes in at the same time. And so it's very competitive for them then to have sell their zucchini. So I'm getting a great price on local, fresh, wholesome, organic produce. Part of the trick, again, is knowing some things that I can do with that zucchini to slow down time and allow me to use it longer. So if I know, for example, I can take just the stuff that we vinegar and some other spices and herbs, and I can make the zucchini into pickles. Zucchini pickles, and then you can have them all winter long because they store forever if you can them. So that's one example where we can take something and take advantage of the fact that now things that are local, so we don't have those high transportation costs because the energy cost to ship things has gone through the roof, which is why we see it cost so much in a supermarket, and start maybe re-exploring some of those local options. Other things are to broaden our culinary palette, as it were.
Okay.
So if I'm buying and I say, Magnus, man, you got to get the organic carrots, and you want to get them with the greens on them, because when those greens are bright and fresh, your carrot's bright and fresh. And when that organic carrot is really that vibrant orange, we know that that's loaded with beta carotene. It's going to be good for you. And you say, yeah, Mike, but it's still 50% more than buying a package of carrots in the without any tops, that are sitting in the store. And then I say, well, Magnus, I got 2 tricks for you. So the first thing you're going to do is when you peel your carrot and you cut off the little top bit and the bottom bit, what we call the trim in the restaurant business, in the chefy business, throw it in a Tupperware, throw it in a plastic bag, put it in the refrigerator. Because, on Sunday when you're relaxing and you're just kind of piddling about, I'm going to have you take all that trim and you're going to throw it in with some leftover, bones and bits from stuff. And you're just going to let it cook with water for about, 4 hours or so. And then you're just going to skim the water off, sieve it off. And you're going to have a $15 quart bone broth if you were to buy that from a celebrity chef, and make the best stock that you've ever used to cook gravies and risottos and whatever. And I'm going to say, cut those greens off. And then I want you to just drop them in boiling water for 2 minutes, put them in a little ice water. And then you're going to put in your food processor, chop it up, whatever. And you're going to have some incredible pesto to go with some bread or to go with your meals, etc. And and if you went out to a restaurant and you said carrot top pesto, wow, that's this chef's really doing his stuff. That chef, she's awesome, man. She must be on the cutting edge. And it's like, no, in a kitchen, when we run a professional kitchen, nothing goes to waste.
Right.
And so we just know how to use those odd bits and ends. And all of a sudden, when you start doing that, and I actually did this a couple of years ago when I lived in Florida, and we did it on daytime TV, and we shopped on a SNAP budget. And I showed that, getting a whole organic chicken and then breaking it down yourself and using the bits and bobs all week long was cheaper than going out and buying pre-done, legs and thighs, pre-done wing, pre-done, skinless, this and that. And you got much more utility out of it because you used all those bones and things that were left over. So I think there are plenty of opportunities for people to engage within their comfort zone to stretch those dollars.
Well, there's that, and technology is everywhere. You can find recipes for all this stuff. Yeah. Honestly, we search our phones for everything else in the world. Recipe. I do it for Christmas cookies. Honestly, I do my Christmas cookies things. I get that taken care of, and I also do the same for other stuff. Like what you're saying. I never knew about the pesto, but definitely I'll make pesto now. I love Italian food, and that's that type of food. But also, what about buying in bulk? We have our Sam's Club, we have our BJ's, we have Costco, we have all these things that are made for like the small mom and pop stores and restaurants. But they open it up to the public finally because they're getting more revenue out of it. So, any tips and tidbits for that?
Yeah, great point. And 100% on that. So one of the things that I recommend making an investment in, if you're going to sort of have a couple of things in your kitchen to make you comfortable and efficient, one is one good chef's knife, which does the job of a whole lot of utensils. And the other is a vacuum sealer, which they've really come down in price. The reason for that is, even if you put things in a plastic bag, in a freezer bag that you buy off the shelf, there's still air in there. So you get frost damage, things freeze, etc. But when you use the vacuum sealer, you could put stuff in there, because I do it every year. So again, I live in Montana. I got my producer down the road, Brian, who's getting my yearly Mangalista, organically raised hog, ready. And then I'll go pick up all the bits and bobs. And then there's things that, I'll just vacuum seal. And then it's good for, in next March, we're eating that. Same thing with our garden, vacuum sealing it. So when you buy things in bulk, if you have that vacuum sealer, you can, when you open that package and you're not using all of it, you can vacuum seal the rest of it up put it in the freezer. If it's a dry good, obviously you just put it in dry good, but that's going to keep it fresh really, really long. And very importantly, to a very small degree, freezing may have some impact on some items, but you're not really changing the taste. And in a lot of cases, especially when you're just putting it on a shelf, like with spices, for example, or if you buy a bulk of like, rolled oats or lentils or things like that, sugar, and you vacuum seal, you're not going to affect the taste or the quality of it easy. So it's going to be good in 6 months as it is at 6 hours from now. And the other thing to do, to touch on what we talked about just a second ago, is when folks make meals, don't necessarily just make it for the night.
Oh, no.
So if I'm making pasta over the weekend, right, I don't make just enough pasta for that night. I make a whole bunch more, and then I vacuum seal it. So when I'm super busy in the middle of the week, I could take my vacuum seal pasta. We do it what's called IQF, which is just individually quick frozen servings. We call it IQFing. And, we put it in there. We vacuum seal it, put it in the freezer, but you package it as an individual, or, if you've got a partner, maybe for two. So I might put 6 raviolis in a package for 2 of us. And then that night when, I'm tired and I don't feel like doing anything, instead of stopping and spending $25 a person at a drive-through, I go home, throw some water on the boil, drop my ravioli in. I've got my sauce already canned. So I open that up, pour that out, and I've got, a primo, pasta dish that if I went to a restaurant would have cost me $50 a person.
Yeah. And then you're still waiting for an hour and a half to get that food, and then you got to drive back, and you're like, I can't believe I ate all that food. Also on top of that, while vacuum sealing stuff, I like to put my spices in with the food and just label it with it. I found personally when doing that is the flavor starts when you suck it into the meat or whatever you're doing. It's 10 times better, and you don't have to marinate it.
That's a great tip. And what I would caution people with is, if you're doing that, don't season as heavily as if you're just putting it out for all the reasons you said, because it intensifies it, and it can come out that you might normally put a certain amount of salt in would come out like super salty
right.
Because of that. And the other thing that you could do, again, which I recommend if you're going to do that, is you can do that whole meal, as you said, vacuum seal it. And you could put it in an Instapot or those slow cookers, and you can put it on so it sets particularly things that we call it sous vide, which is sounds super fancy and intimidating cooking, but it's actually the easiest cooking. It's foolproof. They have Instapots that you can get at a Costco for about $75 that have a sous vide function. I get nothing from Instapot, by the way, so this is not commercial. I should be getting something from them. And you could set that, throw stuff in there, go to work, come back, and it's ready. And because the water bath keeps everything at the same temperature, it never gets higher than that temperature, which is unlike your oven, which if you set it 150, right, it's still drying out, it's still cooking that food. Within that water bath, it's surrounded at 150 degrees. So the meat never gets higher than 150 degrees. So it gives you, it's very kind cooking, gives you a lot of flexibility if you're running late, etc. So that's another sort of trick, is to do, the sous vide cooking. And as you said, you do all these different kind of meals ahead of time and then just drop them in during the weekday.
Oh, absolutely. Now that's, we're almost ready for another break. I can't believe the time's just going by so fast. I should have did one break, but anyway, but you brought up a great point of food prep. I want to get into food prep in the next start, because like what we're talking about right here, everyone, is we don't have time, or we convince ourselves we don't have the time to actually take it out of our day to put healthier things in our body, instead of going to down the street or making a phone call for delivery. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we're going to, keep going with this great topic.
All clear. Be back
right.
in about 2.
All right. Thank you much.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. I hope your audience will enjoy this stuff.
Oh, they will. When I was doing networking, designing computer networks for hospitals, they loved all the food pictures, because I would actually do that. I would not sit in a hotel room. I would actually go. I swear I could have had my own television show like 5 years ago, doing this stuff before it all became, the thing to do. But when I stopped doing it after a month, it's like, well, where's your food pictures at? Why aren't you sending more food pictures? Then I told him I quit the job. He's like, well, why would you do something stupid like that because of all the food you were eating?
I totally hear you, mate. When I did a lot of traveling, which I've cut back on, but I used to travel probably about 8 or 9 months a year. I was on the road,
Mhm.
about 2.5 to 3 weeks a month.
Oh yes.
So I was gone a lot. What I did is I had a kitchen that was in one container. So I had one hot plate, one pan, one pot, my chef's knives, a cutting board, and I would put that. We could check two bags. So one bag would be my suitcase.
Okay.
Then I check this container because my culinary degree is in gourmet cooking and catering. So I basically did a one container catering kit, and I would cook in my hotel room. So because we always at least had the little wee fridge, and you had a sink. And so I would just, I would actually cook. And what I
Coming
found,
back in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Sending you the feed.
I'll be quiet.
It's okay. If we go over, we go over.
To making more money for you with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the show. If you're just tuning in, you definitely want to go back to the other two segments because we're talking about food preparation, a whole bunch of cooking stuff because we're all giant foodies at heart because we have to eat to survive these day and ages. Definitely go back and listen to it. This segment is going to be just like the rest of the show is. It's going to take us all over to different places. And with me to go on this journey is Chef Dr. Mike. Welcome back, Chef.
Thank you, Magnus. Great to be here.
Oh, absolutely. We were just talking at the over the break and prior to the break is about traveling for food, traveling for cooking and whatnot. Do you have any suggestions on when people are traveling to eat healthier and get more out of their dollar?
Oh, sure. So one of the things I always try to do is, and as you mentioned, you and I were talking, and this is very personal for me because right up until about 2 years ago or so, I was on the road about 9 months a year, 2.5, 3 weeks a month on the road. So one of the things I always did was, if I could, within the area I was staying, I always booked a room at a hotel that had kitchens. So there are, Holiday Inn has some, Marriott has some. They have brands that have those kitchen suites in them. And they vary, but you usually get a decent sized refrigerator and at least a stovetop. And some of them actually had an oven as well. If I couldn't get that, then I would look to get a hotel room that some of the places would have a grill that you could use. You could, go outside and hit a little community grill. And as we were talking, my culinary degree is actually in gourmet cooking and catering. And so what I would do is I would check my one piece of luggage as, my clothes, my suitcase. And then I would pack a one container under the weight limit catering rig, which had a hot plate that just plugged into an outlet, one pan, one pot, my chef's knives, and then whatever else I could kind of shove in there. And I would actually make my own snacks and my own stuff in my hotel room. So I know everybody doesn't want to go that far, but that is, sort of one option if you want to take it to the extreme. The other thing that is very important, if I was going places and it was just like a weekend sort of gig, and I was not going to be there very long, because I didn't want to buy stuff and then not end up wasting food because I didn't eat it all from the supermarket. Having some connections in the culinary world, I would just reach out to my chefs in that area, from that area, and say, hey, chef to chef, where do I need to go to get, the farm to table stuff? And while not everybody has access to that, there's this thing, you might know about it, called the internet, right? Where you can get on and look for the restaurants, as you said, the smaller, local, more mom and pop places that are doing this kind of food, that source their food locally, prepare it fresh, are known for that, getting good reviews for that. And I think those are the places that certainly from my perspective, that I would go. Also, as a foodie, a lot of times that lets me taste regional cuisine.
Right.
I might see things that I don't get or I haven't had before, and that makes the meal both exciting and fun for me. So there's that sort of added pleasure to it as well. And so I really recommend doing that versus the fast food drive-through chain sort of places. They're not really offering anything new, and they most certainly are not offering you healthy food.
Oh, that's true. I as we're talking about regional stuff, I'll never forget going down to Shreveport, down in Louisiana.
Mm.
Two of the best restaurants I've ever in that area I have ever eaten was the Blind Tiger for Cajun food, phenomenal food, and there's a little Irish pub like 2 blocks down from there on the main street in Shreveport. They had the best ramen I have ever tasted in my entire life
At an Irish pub.
at an Irish pub. Dead serious. I've been in ramen houses in New York and out San Francisco and whatnot on the West Coast, but this little Irish pub blew them both away. So
Wow.
don't judge the book by the cover, so to say, in this thing, because I was actually very impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, life at the end of the day is simply a collection of our experiences.
Right.
That's what we get to take with us till the end. And so a lot as human beings, as social primates, our DNA is wired to have those experiences over food, with food, celebratory with food, mourning with food. So I encourage people, to always maximize their food experience, and then maximize their food experience with others. And add not only joy to the meal of what you're eating, but joy to your life. I mean, it's a great condiment, right?
Oh, absolutely. And on top of that is you get to meet the people that actually enjoy cooking the food for you. I always like going to these places because when they're slow, they come out and talk. I always love that part and figure out the history of it, get to talk to them. I'll be back and, I send them when other people go where I was going for my projects and stuff. I'm like, you gotta go here. You gotta talk to these guys. They will take care of you. And on top of that, you're giving back to the community. You're investing in the community to that area instead of another, like we were talking about before, another conglomeration of fast food chains.
Yeah, there's
chain
a human connection. Chefs, we love food, right? If we love to talk about it, in case you couldn't figure that out by now.
Yeah.
We're excited to talk about it. It's two passions for me. It's both food and health. And as I was reading, a great Italian author wrote a book about 20 years ago called "Food is Culture," and he said that food and health are simply different aspects of the same corpus, right? They're the two bookends to the same book,
Okay.
just coming at it from very different directions. And that's very much what I do and what I'm about. And that intersection occurs at what you said, which is that human experience, that human interaction. That is so incredibly important. I think one of the lessons as we move a little bit further, away and out of COVID, is that the inability to connect as human beings. We need that. We need that for our health and our mental and emotional well-being. And there is not a substitute. This is great, but there's nothing better than you and I having that ramen together in that pub with ice cold Guinness.
You're right. You're right. Actually, that's exactly what I had that night.
We said Irish pub. I was like, they got to be having Guinness there.
Oh yeah, there was Guinness and there was also shots of I had Bushmills, and then the other guys were drinking Tullamore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it was completely Irish, and hearing punk music on the radio in there. So
Go
it was like
Pogues,
the
go
perfect.
Pogues.
Yep. Yeah. So now we're actually wow. It's already getting close to the end of the show. Uh, so I do have a question for you. How did you tie your medicine? How did you decide to go into cardiology
Well,
from being
I'd
a chef?
always actually I had thought that what I really wanted to do was trauma surgery
Okay.
as a medical student because I love the kind of fast-paced nature of it. Sort of as a medical practitioner, there's a lot of immediate reward, right? Somebody comes in and they've got a gunshot wound and they're going to die, but you get to go in there and make a difference right away. So as a healthcare practitioner, there's immediate gratification, which is as a human being, something that we all like. Um, when I started to actually be able to do the rotations, what I found is that I really like cardiology because it called to my nerd side a little
Okay.
bit. And I really love the science and the physiology. I particularly enjoyed a lot of the fluid dynamics, the physics of fluid dynamics. And so interventional cardiology really gave me an opportunity to explore and really get nerdy with the science of blood flow
Okay.
and how blockages impact that, and the chemistry, the physiology, the biology that's involved in that. At the same time, when people are having heart attacks, as an interventional cardiologist, I'm the guy that goes in at 2 o'clock in the morning, puts a stent in, and opens that artery up. So there's kind of that surgical immediate gratification
Okay.
aspect of it. So that's how I really wound up in cardiology. I found that was the fit for me, and it's been an incredibly rewarding career because, again, many times you're there, at that boundary of someone's life and death,
Okay.
and when you're allowed to be part of that and to do your best to make a positive interaction and experience that with the patient and their family, that is, as a human being, that's a rare, intimate experience and a real gift that I've treasured, for many decades, being able to be part of that and have that experience, at that sort of betwixt and between space.
Okay. Well, that's astonishing. Thank you for all the work you do. So is that how culinary medicine came to about? You just put both of them together after a while?
Well, actually, as I said, I got into food first, and
Right,
so I
right.
really knew what good food was, and for lack of a better term, what crap food was.
Mhm.
But like everybody else, I got busy with life.
We
I'm a
do.
medical intern. I'm a resident. I'm working insane hours. I'm on call. I had the good fortune or bad fortune, depending on how you view it, of doing my internship and residency at the home of Krispy Kreme Donuts in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And
Oh,
and when you finish, you've finished an 18-hour shift and you're on your way back in at 4:30 in the morning to start your rounds. And that red light comes on saying, "We have hot, meltingly delicious Krispy Kreme donuts coming off the conveyor belt." And the devil on your shoulder is going, "They go great with black coffee. You need some coffee anyway." There's no way, you're not pulling in there to get some. And
you're
so
right.
over the years of that, I had some serious health challenges and I had
Okay.
to make some decisions. And I had to take a hard look at what I was doing and where I was, and said, one thing that I can control at this situation now is what I eat. And that's related to the inflammation that's going on and these other things. And so that's what I did. Is I said, I know, and I know I can cook because I've done it professionally. So I can make these foods and stop being lazy and relying on convenience and making excuses, and find a way to do it. And I reversed my condition.
That's amazing.
And then I started realizing that a lot of what I was doing was the opposite of what I had been told to tell patients. And the more I got in, I did 2 years of NIH bench research
Okay.
under a really hard-nosed PhD scientist, and it was very grueling But I thank him, thank you, Brian, wherever you are, because he really taught me how to be a good scientist.
Okay.
And so I really knew how to analyze the data, extrapolate that data, and said, what we're telling people isn't right. This isn't what the science is showing us here, here, and here. That I started sharing that with my patients. They had great results. And then that led to developing a real culinary medicine program, which we've been teaching now here at the University of Montana for almost a decade.
That Wow, that's impressive. That's because I understand when I went to my doctor multiple times about losing weight and whatnot, he gave me this chart about diabetes. Follow this thing. I'm like, serious? I'm like, it came to you for advice, and you give me this chart that has all this stupid stuff on it that I'm not going to eat, and that it has really no health value to me. Because and I'm like, all right, this is what you're instructed and told to give to me. Fine, I'll follow it. I didn't see any results, and then I start what you did, not on your calibers, but I started researching foods and how to get things down. And I'm down since I started my workout program this time around. I'm down about 60 pounds already within a year or so.
And what we've developed is at bridgemed.health, BRIDGMED, no E, MED.health, is we call the healing table. And it's exactly what you point out, Brian, because we found that the success is hooking a person up. We call them a host. Maybe they have a friend or a significant other at their table. You get paired with your own RD, your own chef, and your own food relationship specialist, and you work through specific food health goals. So we can help you eat the food you want to eat, because that's the food you're going to eat for a lifetime.
Right.
And that means it's sustainable for you, and you're
Okay.
going to stick with it. So
Awesome.
yeah, we're working on those solutions.
Okay. Well, that is, chef, we're at the end of the show, man. The hour went by extremely fast. We have about a minute left. How can we get a hold of you? Where can we find your books? How do we sign up for these courses?
So if you go to www.chefdrmike, that's chefdrmike.com, you'll find me there. The courses, social media, primarily Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also visit us at Bridgemed, BRIDGMED.health. And you can kind of see what we're up to there as well. And we'd love to see you at your healing table.
Well, Chef, thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful talking with you about, a subject that I love, that I love dearly. Everybody, that is the show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, go back, listen to the first whole thing of the show. And if you have any questions, reach out to either myself or Chef Dr. Mike. Until then, the weather's nice outside. Get outside, do something, put the phone down, and try cooking one thing for the next week.
All clear. Great show today.
All right. Thank you much.
Thanks.
Sir.
I'm clear lines for the next show. You two have a great rest of your day.
Oh,
Thanks,
you too.
Okay. Thanks,
Wow.
mate. That was phenomenal. I had a blast.
Oh, I had a blast too. We're still recording. This will actually go up on YouTube. Is there anything during the show that you thought we missed that you'd like to talk about now while we're still recording?
I think we gave them a good sort of a nice tasting menu of stuff, and lots of hints and tips and things like that. So yeah, and if your audience loves it, let me know and we'll do another one.
Absolutely. And we both did the best of no jargon. That's the second main thing about the whole show. No jargon.
Oh, good. I didn't even realize that, but yeah, fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah. If you sound like you just did, you just realize it's like, yeah, you didn't use medical terms. You didn't talk down to anybody. You didn't do any of that stuff. And it was a great conversation.
Yeah. Honestly. It was like you and I just having ramen and beers.
Yes, we are.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.